I love being an artist. It couldn't be more different than practicing law. There's so many differences between the way my mind has begun to work just in the short period of time that I've been an artist. A great example of this is the role of failure in the process. As a lawyer, I didn't have the luxury of failing. There's never a time where the client would say, "That's okay, Steve, we'll get him next time." I mean, the client expected victory every time. Where as an artist, failure is a regular part of the process, and it's really integral to the process. I have to fail in order to move forward. On New Year's Eve of 2020, my brother and I attempted a technical dive to 500 feet along with a third diver named Don. We spent several weeks planning the dive, working out the details, and we spent a full day preparing our equipment. At no point did David indicate he was in any sort of distress or trouble. We were in regular communication, giving each other the okay question and then receiving the okay affirmative response back. And at no point did David hesitate to indicate he was okay until our ascent. At about 270 feet, my brother called out, "Steve!" He pressed his tongue against his regulator, made that noise. It's the first syllable of my name. It's a communication method we developed as children early on in our diving, and we used it for 40 years to talk to each other underwater. I knew right away that was David calling out to me, and I turned to look to see what he wanted, and what I saw was a nightmare. He was upside down, which was a very dangerous situation. 4 of his 6 tanks were secured in front of his body, and they're heavy because they're still full of gas. They get lighter as the dive goes on, but he had not begun to breathe out of these tanks, and so when he gets on his back, those tanks have his arms impinged, and he was sinking very quickly. I got head down and began to chase him. It took me about 50 seconds to get to him. During that time, we descended about 100 feet. I believe he was already in a tonic-clonic seizure brought on by his breathing of the wrong gas, which he had no choice because he'd exhausted the correct gas. We were looking at one another, and suddenly his eyes rolled back in his head, and his head leaned backwards. His body went limp, and he went head down and began to sink. Until that very moment, his death was never part of my mental equation. I had not considered this as being the last moments of his life. And so it was quite overwhelming for me to understand that's David's died. David's dead now. I was already separated from him in the current about 40 feet, and I was aware that I was hyperventilating. Possibly it was from the effort of chasing him down. Possibly it was as a result of the horror unfolding around me, or my own awareness that my death was imminent. I remember feeling the squeeze of my wetsuit and the squeeze of my webbing of my back plate, and just the feeling of paralysis and the inability to move or to function or to make clear decisions. There was a period of time, about 15 minutes. I have very little recollection of what happened. I wasn't fighting to survive. I didn't desire to die, but I did not have any desire to live either. I was just existing. A hole opened up in the reef, and I was able to drop down into a little sandy bottom area out of the current. I buried my face into the sand so that all I could see were the sand crystals. And just the gravity of the situation I was in, I thought about my wife. I had a deep sense of regret that I had put my family in this position. I felt very selfish that I was down there, and I wished I could undo the decisions that led me to this point. I was crying, I was praying, I was thinking about my children, and I just decided that I needed to survive. I needed to survive. I just became consumed with the process of surviving and what I had to do, and the management of my bottles and my equipment, doing the math I needed to do to figure out which gases to breathe at which depths and for how long. The last hour was all spent at 40 feet or shallower, and so you can hear the boats passing overhead. I remember feeling a desire that they would stop. I wanted to hear the motors slow down and a boat stop. I wanted to know that somebody cared, that I was still down there, that Dave was still down there. I just felt very alone. I wanted somebody to stop. I wanted a diver to come down and say, "Are you okay?" But none came. But when I surfaced, much to my surprise, the dive boat was right there. They'd been there all along. And they helped me out of the water, and we took my gear off. And then the captain said, "I need you to sit down. I got some bad news. Your brother is dead. We've recovered his body." I tried to reach my wife. I couldn't get anybody on the phone. My whole family was with me in Mexico. So I sent a text to my sister and my wife that David did not survive the dive. The police called us and had us report to a particular marina. There were cops everywhere, Mexican police and all sorts of other people. After about 30 minutes of standing there and trying to get my bearings and talking to the police, I finally asked somebody, where did they take David? Where's David's body? Everybody got quiet and looked at me with the same odd expression. So I repeated the question again, this time in Spanish. And somebody then had the courage to point down on the back deck of the boat, covered in 10 towels, was my brother's body. It was quite a horrific sight. I got a call from my sister saying that David's wife and daughter were on their way to the pier, and I begged her to stop that from happening. I did not want his daughter especially to see David's body. And the police wanted to take me downtown to the jail and interrogate me. I went home first and took a shower and talked to my dad, walked through the whole story with him. And then I went back to the police station where I spent all the way until like 11 o'clock. And I got home, and his little daughter, this trip to Cozumel, it was an annual trip we did every year. On New Year's Eve, we would always have a big party, a piñata and a big spread. And there was little Melina, David's daughter, dressed in her New Year's Eve party dress, still expecting that there was going to be a party. It was never supposed to happen. And when it did, it changed everything. It's like that feeling you have. I don't know if you've ever woken up and felt like something terrible had happened, and then slowly you realize it was just a nightmare. It was a bad dream, and you have that sense of relief wash over you that it's okay. It didn't really happen. But when I wake up, doesn't go away. And I feel like it never will. There's nothing I could have done to change the outcome, but I wish I would have stayed clear-headed and engaged the entire time. But that's the perception I had of myself, is the guy who's going to stay calm and cool under pressure. I wish I would have at least clipped his body onto my harness and hauled his dead body to the surface, just something, rather than just focusing on my own survival. And it's caused really a paradigm shift in the way I view myself and the way I view the world. And I have to accept that that identity that I'd created for myself was not accurate. But it was because of the way I acted that I'm here today, to be able to share the story and to be a father to my children and a husband to my wife. And that's beautiful, it's lovely, and I'm very grateful that I did survive, because there was certainly a period of time during the dive where that outcome was not certain or even likely. So that's been a big change. It's altered the trajectory of my life in a very profound way. There's a sense of relief, if I'm honest, that I'm not the hero. I don't have to save the day. I just have to be. There's nothing wrong with just being and experiencing life as it comes, and the beauty that's around me, and the beauty of the sunrise and the sunset, and just being. And I found an incredible amount of happiness in my post-accident world, just based on that one principle. That I can be who I am right here in the moment, and I can be an observer of what's around me and the people that are around me. And it's terrible of a price that David paid. His death ultimately was a gift to me to unlock this understanding of the world.